Hey there, team, and welcome to an update on the Kilauea volcano in Hawaii. I am Geology Professor Shawn Willsey. Thanks for joining me. Today is Tuesday, February 11th, and we have a new eruption. We have episode 9, which just began today about 10:16 a.m. local time over in Hawaii. And you can see the fountaining going on there on the live webcam. This is the north vent, and we have fountaining going up maybe 300 feet or so, according to the USGS. So a nice, vigorous, very eye-pleasing eruption. So I thought we'd go through some of the data and images and also look back at episode 8. I was there on the island a week ago when episode 8 was taking place, and just wanted to share a few pictures from me as well as some that a viewer sent that he was able to capture some much better pictures than mine while he was there for episode 8. So here's our current view here. If we scroll back with the USGS webcam, let's see, there's 9:18 in the morning. Here we are at about 9:50. The eruption began about 10:16. So you'll see in the moments just before the eruption, the lava starts spattering a little bit. The last few nights, there's been glow from this vent at night, which indicates that the vent, A, the vent is open, and B, that magma was pretty close to the surface. So if we scoot forward just a bit here, and let's go back a little bit. So yeah, here we are at 10:12. And you can see a little bit starting to spatter just there. And maybe just kind of going through a little bit, you can see it starting to spatter. I'm just speeding it up a little bit here to get you to the good stuff. And there's a little bit hitting the walls, 10:13. So you could argue that, it's erupting right now. It's a bit arbitrary picking that exact moment when the eruption has begun, because it can kind of ramp up a bit. Here's 10:14. Again, we can see some of the glow. Lava is starting to spill out of the vent. The gas is propelling the magma. Of course, it's a bit of a runaway feedback effect, where once you get some of the lava pushed to the surface, more gases can expand. They occupy more volume, so they push even more up. So here we are at 10:15, and by 10:16 or so, right about here, you can see the lava spilling out of the crater. The eruption's pretty much going at this point. And from there, the pressure just kept increasing. If we skip ahead just a skosh here, you can see it starting to fountain within the vent. 10:24, and then they had to, at some point in here, they had to zoom out 10:25 just to get the whole fountain in the frame here. So here we are at 10:26. Yeah, so it's kind of fun to run through the webcam thing and just see how it progressed. You can see these lava flows advancing out across the crater floor. Here we are at 10:28. Yeah, and then they zoom back out to get everything in here. So I'll just go ahead and put it up to the current webcam view, which is right there. So you can see the fountaining going on quite a ways up, several hundred feet, about 100 meters or so. You can see the rim back here. Here's one of the down-dropped and tilted blocks from the 2018 collapse, which actually deepened the crater floor quite a bit. And then we have the lava flows coming out the base here, filling in the crater. So there's one view there, excuse me, with the live webcam. Here is, let's see if we can update that. Here is the S2 webcam. So this is updated every 10 minutes or so. This is looking to the west at the main vent. There we can see the rim of the crater, the profile of Mauna Loa in the background there. And you can see a little bit coming out. There's that north vent, and just a little bit of oozing coming out the south vent. So there is eruption going on at the south vent, but just not as much as the north vent. We'll see if that changes over time. When we were there for episode 8, it was going out of both vents pretty much equally while we were there. And so this one could ramp up to that as more magma comes to the surface. Another webcam here, give that a quick update. And that just really shows nicely just how high the fountaining is from the vent towards the rim. I think it's about 400 feet, 112, 13 meters or so from the base of the crater floor up to the rim. And you can just see how much of that height is occupied by the lava fountain going on there. Pretty spectacular. So those are our webcam views, just to remind you of where this is all taking place. With a map, the USGS put out a new map a few days ago on the 7th. So here is Kilauea caldera. the whole thing out here. And within that, we have this sort of smaller, deeper section of the caldera, Halima'uma'u crater. The lava flows we've been experiencing over the past, I guess, 2 months or so is shown in pink, and those eruptive vents are shown over here. So they're sort of on the west or the southwest side of the crater floor. Quick little overview of what else is going on here. This is where the Hawaii Volcano Observatory used to be. Of course, the 2018 event and earthquakes caused damage to the building, and so they're actually building, we actually drove by it when we were there last week, they're building a new USGS Volcano Observatory facility right here by Kilauea Military Camp, so that's good news. And if you're over on the island, or you'll be there soon, and wondering where you can go to see the eruption, you can see it from several places along the rim, but the best place, the location that will get you closest, is if you drive from the entrance here, Chain of Craters Road. Here's the visitor center. Here's the entrance to the park. Drive down Chain of Craters Road, past Kilauea Iki Crater and the lava tube that's there, and that'll get you over here to an intersection. Or excuse me, this is Crater Rim Drive, not Chain of Craters Road. Crater Rim Drive that goes around, and then that intersects here with Chain of Craters Road, and there's the Devastation Trailhead. That's where you want to park. Now, there's some signs right there that take you out to the rim, and you can see the eruption from there. But if you want to get closer, what you can do is park in this area and then walk the old road. So that's open to walking. It's a pretty easy walk. And that will get you out here, out by Ke'anekakoi Crater. And there's an overlook here that's set up for viewing for visitors that lets you look right at the eruptive vent. So, and then from this point to the west, the road's closed. But this will be your closest point if you're wanting to watch that. So a little overview there with the map. Moving ahead, if you're let's go with the update first. So this is the latest update from the USGS that just came out about 11 o'clock a.m. Hawaii time. And you can see here, episode 9 began this morning at about 10:16 with lava fountains producing a lava flow on the crater floor. It was preceded by small sporadic spatter fountains that began early yesterday morning. So there was some intermittent, spattering going on, but it wasn't the full fountaining effect, so didn't quite qualify or count as the full-blown eruption. These increased intensity overnight. Fountains from the north vent are estimated to be 330 feet or about 100 meters high as of this morning, and it's covering about a quarter of the crater floor at this point. And then slow effusion of lava from the south vent began a little bit later, about 10:50. We'll look at the tilt here a little bit. So the inflationary tilt that was going on that preceded this eruption. And then all of this is related to, is part of a bigger phase of eruptive activity at the summit that started on December 23rd. And we are on episode 9. There's been 9 individual eruptions from this location up at the crater since December 23rd. And so let me show you a timeline here that might kind of help you if you're having trouble keeping track of all these eruptions. The USGS has a nice handy-dandy timeline here. The start time of each episode, when it ended, how long each eruption lasted, and then how long it took to get to the next eruption. So you can see the first one coming in lasting 14 hours. 16 hours later, episode 2 had begun. It lasted 15 hours. About 24 hours or a day later, episode 3. And episode 3 was the longest lasting. It was 8.5 days of continuous eruption. But then we had the longest repose between eruptions. We had a 12-day period or pause until episode 4 began. It lasted 3 days, 4 days, you can see. And then the trend we've been on since episode 5 is, a little bit shorter period in terms of eruption time, basically anything from 13 to 22 hours, and then just a few days or so. But it's not, it's not perfectly linear. It is somewhat cyclical, but it's not following a certain well-defined pattern. So what we kind of do is we get to these windows where we think an eruption is likely, but it's not really pinned to a specific date. So here's the one I was at, which was the episode 8 eruption, which lasted 22 hours, and then we've had 6 days between that eruption and this one here, which is episode 9, which just began. So some of the fun photos that the USGS has put out, I don't think there's any, they have a couple from the one that began today. Most of these will be from episode 8. But we can look at maybe a couple of the videos here. Always nice to just see the eruption take place. So here is some fountaining from episode 8. You can see both vents there going quite nicely, the north vent and the south vent. And then the lava kind of streaming out this open side, this east side of the vent, kind of following a gap there. There's all the lava spatter building up the rim around the spatter cone. And then sometimes, occasionally, you can sometimes see the spatter cone collapse because you also have the lava at the base can kind of thermally erode and undermine that spatter ridge, and then you can see it collapsing as well. So some nice videos there from the USGS. Maybe a couple quick photos here. Here's episode 8 when it was taking place during the day. Again, those 2 vents going off. And let's see, we've got, here's episode 9. So here's the only photo they have so far, just the webcam view for episode 9. Undoubtedly, they're probably getting down there today to get some more photos of the eruption. So some of the photos there, if we look at the monitoring data from the last week, this is kind of interesting. So earthquakes haven't really been an indicator here since we have this vent and the conduit to the magma chamber open and established. It doesn't take a lot of seismic energy or breaking of rock to get that magma to the surface. It's mainly a volume, magma volume and gas volume issue. So you can see, if we look per day, a lot of these sort of spikes on the blue bar graph here correspond to some of the different episodes, but really just pretty low number of earthquakes overall. This is not considered a huge number of quakes for this system. You know, when we see other eruptions here, we sometimes look at hundreds of earthquakes in a day when vents have to be established. So fairly small in terms of seismicity. You can sort of see it clustering there a little bit during those episodes, but kind of just sporadic for the most part and just kind of forming a background level. The real indicator, of course, has been the monitoring data. So this is going back a month or so. So here's, I think this is episode 3. So we get inflation as we ramp up towards an eruption. And once the eruption begins, if you watch the blue line, there's a deflationary period as that lava is spilling out onto the crater floor. And then once the eruption ends, we resume inflation as more magma rises and the pressure builds. And then it falls. There's episode 4, 5. Let's see, this would be 4, 5, 6, 7. And then this is 8. And then if we refresh this, I wonder if we can just see, maybe not, probably not on the monthly one. So episode 9, you might be able to make out a tiny blue dip right there. That's the beginning of episode 9. But here's the episode 8 one. So you can see that sometimes the inflation deflation cycles are pretty short, and it doesn't take as much pressure. But there's an overall sort of pattern here, at least these last 4 or 5 eruptions, a certain amount of inflation on the tilt meter needed to trigger the eruption. This one here, 4, was higher, but it seems like since 4, it's taken a little less tilt or pressure to trigger the eruptions. So there's the last month. If we look at it in a weekly, from a weekly perspective, again, not much on the earthquakes. We can kind of gloss over those. Here's episode 8's kind of off this a little bit. And then we have episode 9, of course, which began today. But here's our tilt. So we're coming out of episode 8. And then you can see this inflation kind of going up, going up, going up. And then that little dip right there, that's the beginning of the eruption for episode 9. Trying to make that as big as I can for you here. So there's that deflation beginning. And so question will be, how long will the eruption last? How much deflation will occur? And over what timeline before we start seeing inflation begin for episode 10. One more thing to point out here, looking at the monthly plot, is the sort of the slope of inflation. If you look at this last one here, coming off episode 8, going into episode 9, it's kind of stair-step a little bit, but if you took an overall slope of that there, it's a little less steep than some of these other ones back here. And so it could be that the influx of magma is slowing a little bit. The rate of inflation might be slowing down a little bit. Interesting to see if that holds or not. And then finally, as I said before, I was out there on the island for about 10 days this past week. We happened to be there on For episode 8, it started at about 10 o'clock on Monday, February 3rd. I think I'd already gone to bed, but when I got up that next morning, I saw that an eruption had begun with an email. And so the group I was with, we scrapped whatever plans we had for the day, headed straight over, and were able to get some pictures. We watched it erupt in the afternoon. Then we went and grabbed kind of an early dinner, came back at sunset, and was able to see the eruption take place in the evening. And maybe the most amazing thing that I'd never seen before was watching the eruption subside and die. We actually got to see that. I think it was pretty much over by about 7:30 that evening. So I'll show you a couple pictures here. But first, let me show you some better pictures. One of our viewers, Matt Corley, sent me some photos. He said I could show them as long as I attribute them to him. So these are Matt's photos and a little bit of video that he sent. So I just want to share these with you. He had a telephoto lens and much better camera than me, which was just holding up my iPhone. So he was there also for episode 8. So here's some of the great pictures he took. I think that's the north vent there. So he's got some nice photos here. And then this might be a little video clip. Yep, so there's the video there. Just the fountaining, the lava kind of spilling over various parts. So really nice video he was able to capture. So thanks, Matt, for sharing this with us. Another view there kind of zoomed out, showing the crater rim. This might have been after the other vent had died down a little bit, or maybe it's just sort of taking a pause from fountaining there. More great photos here. And this one might be a little video clip here as well. Let's see what we've got. Load, load, load. Well, that one might be a little sticky, so but some nice photos and video nonetheless. So thanks, Matt, for sending these. Here you can see some of the silhouettes of the viewers there. So if you hiked out to that overlook, this is the kind of view you get. It's about a mile away, so this maybe makes it look a lot closer than it actually was. It's kind of a sideways view. You might have went to a different overlook to get that view. And then it looks like he had a couple shots during the day as well. There's one with the helicopter. We were able to watch the USGS helicopter land on the lava field, and the USGS scientists in their orange jumpsuits hop out and go get a lava sample. That was kind of cool. So yeah, there's the helicopter right there. So great images from Matt. Much better than what I have, but I did want to share with you at least a few of my photos as well. So here's when we got to the overlook in the evenings. You can see all the people kind of lined up, and there's the 2 vents erupting for episode 8. You can see the goofy look on my face. This was obviously pretty spectacular for me. Not my first eruption, but you know, any eruption is a good time and definitely a memorable experience. So that kind of gives you a better sense of how far the eruption is. So close enough to see nicely. Binoculars and magnification helped. But really just a nice show overall. There's one of my photos from the evening. And this one here, this is interesting. So I told you we were there when the eruption died down. So the north vent died out quickly. Like, it was fountaining, going strong, and probably over just a 2-minute or so period, it went pretty much quiet. And the south vent kept plugging along for another 10-20 minutes before it kind of slowly died. So it was interesting to see the vent behavior. And so I did manage to remember to take a picture when the north vent was done erupting and just a little bit was coming out of the south vent there. So hopefully that's of interest to you, but we'll continue to watch that with the webcam. Another fine eruption at Kilauea. What will the future hold? How many of these episodes are we going to have? When will episode 10 begin? All good questions, and we're just kind of at the mercy of this volcano and seeing what takes place. How much inflation will occur? How much magma is continuing to come up? Right now, it's an interesting eruption because it's behaving, quite nicely in terms of, there's the inflation deflation cycles. It's a very simple, not super complicated pattern that we've been watching so far. So we'll have to see if this continues. Will the vent stay the same? Will there be any movement away from the summit area. Right now, we have no evidence that anything's moving down the east rift zone or out the southwest rift zone either. So for right now, the Kilauea eruption is just a fantastic tourist-friendly eruption. So if you're over there, hopefully you can take advantage of that. So I'll keep you posted as best I can. Thanks for your time, and we'll see you next time. Take care.